Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. Why don't people think Ryan Garcia was on PEDs cheating against Devin Haney? That's the question. Matter of fact, let me move myself out the way here. Let me stretch this across the screen, right? Because to me, that's the real question here. Well, it's two questions. One, which I'm not going to talk about because I've talked about it in other videos, is the New York State Athletic Commission failing to prove whether Ryan Garcia intentionally or unintentionally took the Ostering, which they can't prove it anyway. The second thing is, how come so many people really believe that he didn't cheat? And I think it's important to understand when you look at Ryan Garcia's situation, and Devin Haney has a role to play in a little bit of the doubt that's been created, is liars can create the illusion of truth. You know what I'm saying? And there was an article that was published that I read over. I'm going to go over some parts of it with you, where it talks about repetition makes a fact seem more true, regardless of whether it is or not. Understanding this effect can help you avoid falling for propaganda, says a psychologist, right? Now, when you look at Ryan Garcia and his team and the position that they've taken, they've consistently repeated his innocence. Need help. Okay, I'll be there in 1 second, all right? They've consistently repeated that Ryan Garcia is innocent. Something was contaminated. This is a witch hunt against Ryan Garcia. He didn't need to take anything to beat Devin Haney. Ryan Garcia has gone out of his way to try to prove his innocence. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's been successful in proving his innocence because it's a hard thing to do. But irregardless of all that, if you repeat a lie often enough to many, it can become the truth. Now, among psychologists, something like this is known as the illusion of truth effect. Now, I'm going to give you something here that I read, right? Here's how a typical experiment on the effect works. The illusion of truth effect works. Participants rate how true trivia items are. Things like a prune is a dried plum. Sometimes these items are true, like that one, but sometimes participants see a parallel version which isn't true. Something like a date is a dried plum. After a break of minutes or even weeks, the participants do the procedure again. But this time, some of the items they rate are new, and some they saw before in the first phase. The key finding is that people tend to rate items they've seen before as more likely to be true, regardless of whether they are true or not, and seemingly for the sole reason that they are more familiar. Now, when you talk about this example, about the prune and the dates, when you look at Ryan Garcia and the things we've seen before with him, knocking people out, having that speed, you tend to want to believe what showed up in that ring against Devin Haney was what Ryan Garcia has always done, even though there may be the chance that Ryan Garcia really intentionally took a banned substance to give himself an advantage. But nonetheless, it split a lot of the boxing fans, and there are some people, because of what they've always seen from Ryan Garcia, since a little kid up to now, you can't make them believe that Ryan Garcia cheated in that Devin Haney fight, because it's the illusion of truth effect. Okay, now let me continue on with this right here. So here, captured in the lab, seems to be the source for the saying that if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. And if you look around yourself, you may start to think that everyone from advertisers to politicians are taking advantage of this foible of human psychology. But a reliable effect in the lab isn't necessarily an important effect on people's real beliefs. If you really could make a lie sound true by repetition, which is what a lot of people saying Ryan's doing, then there'd be no need for all the other techniques of persuasion, which is a whole lot of persuasion that Ryan and his team are trying to do to make everyone believe that there's no way in the world he cheated. Okay? One obstacle is what you already know. Even if a lie sounds plausible, why would you set what you know aside just because you heard the lie repeatedly? It's like setting aside what we know for Ryan Garcia to test positive for ostering. Why would we set that aside just because he's saying that he never took anything, he has no reason to take anything, and if something was in his system, it was something contaminated. Then he goes out and has his products, his supplements tested, say they were contaminated, but then the company who manufactured and distributed that particular lot number, that batch of the supplement, says it's all bullshit, it's a lie. So again, it puts people in a position where they got to make a choice, and there are some people who are going to believe, because they keep hearing it over and over, that Ryan Garcia couldn't possibly have cheated or taken anything, even though it's right in our face that he had the ostarine in the system. Now, there was a team out of Vanderbilt University that set out to test how the illusion of truth effect interacts with our prior knowledge. Would it affect our existing knowledge? They used paired true and untrue statements, but also split their items according to how likely participants were to know the truth. So the Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean on Earth. Is an example of a known item which also happens to be true. And the Atlantic Ocean is the largest ocean on Earth. Is an untrue item for which people are likely to know the actual truth. Their results show that the illusion of truth effect worked just as strongly for known as for unknown items, suggesting that prior knowledge won't prevent repetition from swaying our judgments of plausibility. A good example of this is a guy or girl in a relationship, and the guy comes home smelling like perfume and a hickey on his neck, or the girl comes home, she gets straight into the shower and shit like that. And there's things you're seeing, and you're like, okay, hold on a second here. But they keep telling you over and over. Oh, a bee stung my neck. Or I was at work and something got on my clothes. And you're seeing some shit here that you know. It's some truth here. But they keep repeating over and over that the lies, which eventually you start buying into it, swaying your judgment of plausibility. Now, to cover all bases, the researchers performed one study in which the participants were asked to rate how true each statement seemed on a 6-point scale, and one where they just categorized each fact as true or false. Repetition pushed the average item up the 6-point scale and increased the odds that a statement would be categorized as true. For statements that were actually fact or fiction, known or unknown, repetition made them all seem more believable. At first, this looks like bad news for human rationality, but, and I can't emphasize this strongly enough, when interpreting psychological science, you have to look at the actual numbers. Now, with Ryan Garcia, we're talking about numbers. Listen, everyone keeps talking about the levels of ostarine in the system. Let me tell you something. That seems to be a huge influence to where some people say, hey, he had this stuff in the system, he's guilty, he intentionally took it, he's a cheat. But for some people, they're looking at the levels in the system, and even though there's shit in his system, they're still saying, no, he didn't cheat. Even though it's in his system, they start making excuses for how those levels in the system couldn't have enhance his performance, and there's no way he took anything. He probably just ate something, or he probably was around something, or he probably put lotion on, or it was the lotion he put in his hair. All kind of shit people are saying because of them being influenced by those numbers. Anyway, the repetition effect, in my opinion, I just think it can't mask the truth, all right? So with or without Ryan and his team repeating over and over that he's innocent and the different avenues they've traveled down to prove his innocence, I just think a lot of people today are starting to believe the facts opposed to the repetition being spewed out by Ryan and his team, which a lot of people feel are just lies. Now, this shows something fundamental about how we update our beliefs. Repetition has a power to make things sound more true, even when we know differently, but it doesn't override that knowledge. Good example is me. I'm neutral. I don't come out here and jump on the bandwagon. But if you watch my videos, you'll see I may go from talking about something and being neutral and saying, well, I kind of think this, but over time, the repetition and the more I hear something, I will either get away from the direction I'm leaning, or I will really, cinch down on that belief and say, no, starting to get a bit more fidelity here. And the more I think about it, that's because of the repetition of what's being shared with us, whether it's true or untrue, that can sway you. And it can, just like it says here, it can help to override what knowledge you do have. And for me, in this case, the more I look at Ryan Garcia, I had to stop and say, okay, I can't sit here and make excuses for this man like he's innocent when he got this shit in his system. And his team has done a good job at creating doubt through that repetition and the illusion of truth effect. But the fact remains, I do believe this Ryan Garcia cheated against Devin. Because when you look at Ryan Garcia and his behavior and everything, you look at what's in front of you, right? The man had this shit in the system, and they keep repeating it over and over. I can't allow myself to be swayed and get caught up in that. And he hasn't done a great job to come out here and prove otherwise. So when you're dealing with the facts, the fact is Ryan Garcia is guilty, people. It is what it is. You see, we have to be, in my opinion, we have to be rigidly logical about every piece of information that we're hearing. And when you look at everything that we've heard about Ryan Garcia, you've got to assess it against everything that we already know, the facts. Okay? Now, we know everybody has an opinion and everyone has a potential to lie. The supplemental company, Devin Haney, his dad, VADA, the New York State Athletic Commission, Victor Conti, Ryan Garcia, his team, everybody, Oscar De La Hoya, the commission. It's the goddamn secret society in full effect. Everybody has a potential to lie. But because I think most of us are quick to make really fast judgments, I think we tend to adopt shortcuts. And more often than not, when you're dealing with the facts, you're probably going to be right than wrong. But when you're not dealing with the facts and you're dealing with emotion, more often than not, you're going to be wrong than right. So relying on how often you've heard something to judge how truthful something feels is just one strategy. Relying on how often you've heard something to judge how truthful something feels is one strategy. In a universe where truth gets repeated more often than lies, even if only 51% versus 49%, will be one where this is a quick and dirty rule for judging facts. Look at Puff Daddy. When they first started talking about Puff Daddy, most people thought he was innocent. And then, More stuff comes out about him, the lawsuit, the video. Right? Kind of crazy. Anyway, if repetition was the only thing that influenced what we believed, we would be in trouble. We would be in trouble. You see, there are limited resources at our disposal, man, that can help with the powers of reasoning. And when you look at what's going on with Ryan Garcia, his situation, I mean, all you're dealing with really is Ryan Garcia, his legal team, and New York State Athletic Commission. Ryan Garcia's team had stuff tested, hair follicle supplements. The New York State Athletic Commission, looks like they didn't test all of that, but they took his samples, blood sample, urine samples, whatever, and they tested it and they came up with the ostarine. But they didn't seem to go the extra mile because they don't have to, because of their rules or strict liability. But it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? So all we can do is kind of double check kind of what we believe in and get back to the facts. And if something sounds plausible, it probably is, because it's true. And when you start looking at thinking Ryan Garcia is innocent, you tend to believe that's true and overlook the positive tests because you're repeatedly being told that. Not by him, but now you got all these different athletes and entertainers who are coming out and saying Ryan Garcia is innocent. He's still out there, man, in the public eye, gambling, at parties, drinking, getting drunk, acting crazy. And people seem to be okay with that. He looks to be about to go and do some movie, and he has millions and millions of dollars that are being thrown at him for modeling and different things and promoting different things. So nonetheless, in my opinion, for me, it's important that I guard against the illusion of truth and just deal with the facts. Because I think we all have an obligation to stop getting caught up in the repetition of falsehoods. Because in my opinion, this is where I think we are on it. You know what I'm saying? And we do live in a world where there's facts, facts that matter, and then there's matter of facts. And there's the only thing that should matter are the facts. Now, when it comes to, as a matter of fact, if you can prove, in Ryan Garcia's case, his innocence, well, he needs to do that. Now, has he done it? I'm not so convinced he's done that so far. But this is his time while he has that 1-year ban to work feverishly and diligently to clear his name. And he can continue to repeat whatever he wants. And boxing fans out here they don't have to bother to check if something's true or not. But I tell you what, as long as Ryan Garcia and his team continue to make a world of statements and repeating what could be lies, it is so much easier to confuse that truth. So let's think before we just start getting caught up in what Ryan Garcia is repeating, and just look at what we have in front of us, people. And if you ask me, if it looked like a snake, if it crawls like a snake, if it hisses like a snake, you got a goddamn snake. And I tend to believe Ryan Garcia, based on the facts and not getting caught up in the illusion of truth effect, that he was on the cocktail in the breeze.